Welcome back to the Early Edge on CBS Sports Network. I'm your host today, Mackenzie Brooks, and we are talking the Big Ten. Whole thing, whole conference. Vibes are up in the Big Ten. We're going to hit win totals. We're going to talk coaches. We're going to talk quarterbacks. We're going to talk Big Ten championship. What's going to go on in Indianapolis, all of those things. And I have just the college football crew to get it done with me this full hour. I'm going to bring in the stars of the show. We got Tom Casale, we got Zack Cimini, we got Emory Hunt. Gentlemen, prepare, strap in for an hour of Big Ten glory. We're going to start with some win totals here. Now, I want to start with our big three, and then there's like the big three, and then there's like the stepbrother of Michigan. We'll get to him as well. But let's start with Ohio State here. 10.5 is the win total here. Plus money-ish, plus 110 to go over, minus 135 for them to hit the under this season. Emory, I start with you. How are we feeling about the reigning national champions?
Feeling pretty good, man. And I like them to go over this win total. Ohio State doesn't rebuild, they reload, especially along both sides of the line of scrimmage, which is where football is won and or lost. But I think because they have set such a standard of how they do things in the trenches and how they've done things in the backfield, I have no issues with Ohio State. The only question I have about the Buckeyes this year is how quickly can they get their young quarterback acclimated to playing plus level football. And I do believe he'll have to get started right away against Texas. But outside of that, they'll be able to slowly work him into the offense and get him to play his best ball as the season rolls on. So that's why I do like them to go over. I look at the schedule. They do have a very good schedule, enough to where you can see them getting 11 wins this season.
Tom, are you feeling the same optimism here on the Buckeyes?
Well, this is a really good number for Ohio State, but what Emory said about Texas is why I lean under. I really like Texas to win that game. I took them +3, but you look at these two teams, they both lost some talent, but Ohio State lost a lot of key leaders to the draft. And as Emory mentioned, we still don't know exactly who's going to be the quarterback. I think they lose that game. And then you look at the rest of the schedule with Penn State, Michigan, a couple tricky road games at Washington and Illinois. I wouldn't be surprised if the Buckeyes went over this total, but if they lose to Texas, I think it's going to be tough. So I lean under 10.5 here.
Zach, you leaning with Emory or Tom?
I'm leaning with Tom on this one, under 10.5 wins. You have to have just one loss to get over this win total in the regular season. We know Ohio State has that never-ending talent. They have a Heisman front-runner in Jeremiah Smith, a running back factory, even with a couple of guys going to the NFL. But I'm with Tom. It comes down to that hard schedule, playing Texas in Penn State. I think at best that will be a split. And then we know Michigan has been their kryptonite no matter what the Wolverines' record has been. They've lost 4 years in a row. So for me, I think they're a 2-loss team. I'll go under 10.5 wins.
All right. Well, let's go to the team everyone wants to be talking about here. Penn State, the Nittany Lions, same over/under, same 10.5. Now, Penn State does play Ohio State and Oregon. So curious if this changes anything about how you feel about this team, Emory.
Not at all. Listen, I've been on Penn State going undefeated all spring and summer. And why back down now, right? So I'm going over this number. I do like the way they're set up this year, balance on offense, which means they've added more receivers to help Drew Allen in that passing game not be so tight end reliant. Now, granted, they won't be tight end reliant this year because there's no Tyler Warren there for him to be tight end reliant, but they do have two tailbacks. They do have two good receivers. The defense just seems to always replenish what they've had the previous season, what they lost the previous season, and that's no different here. Danny Dennis-Smith is one of the best defensive ends in the country, but again, more balance on offense to me equates to them going over this win total.
Interesting. Zach, do you think they can go 2-0 in these big games here and hit the over?
I do. I think an undefeated season is possible for this Penn State team going over 10.5 wins. I think James Franklin is the latest Big Ten coach to have high-end success. They were so close last year, getting to that national title game, falling just short of the Irish. And this is unfinished business for this team. You got both your 1,000-yard rushers back in Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Of course, your top quarterback in Drew Aller. And the schedule sets up beautifully to have a rest advantage before your two biggest games of the season on September 27th against Oregon, which won't be on rest the prior week. They face Oregon State. And then later in the season, traveling to Ohio State on November 11th, you're also going to have that rest advantage as well. So I think Penn State, they cannot have a strong regular season. They may fall short in the college football playoff, but they go over 10.5 wins.
Tom, I'm playing more of the plus 200 Penn State to have 10 wins exactly. I think I could see a lot of these teams hitting 10 wins. Are you more on this under with me, or are you on the over as well?
Yeah, I went with the over too. I'm with Emory. I think Penn State could go undefeated. It's going to be that Ohio State game. See, the reason I like the overs, I really like them to beat Oregon on September 27th. I think that's going to be a tough game for the new Oregon quarterback, Dante Moore. And they're going to be favored in pretty much all the rest of their games. Listen, this defense is good. They have an experienced starting quarterback. And what I really like what Penn State did in the offseason is they addressed the receiver position. Tyler Warren had more receptions last year than all the Penn State receivers combined. So even though he's gone, I think the offense could be a little bit more explosive. So again, a really tight number for Penn State, but I'm going over.
All right, all right. Let's round out the big three here. Tom, I'm going to come back to you with Oregon again, 10 and a half. A lot of differences on this team, but again, another team that likes to reload here. Now they only face Penn State. So Tom, are you feeling the over at the plus 135 or going under?
Yeah, this was a tough one for me because I don't think Oregon's ceiling is as high this year as last year, but they have the best schedule out of all the contenders. You mentioned they avoid Michigan, they avoid Ohio State, they avoid Illinois. They could be favored in every game outside of the Penn State game. So it's hard for me to take the under because I'll tell you right now, the best to me, the guy who structures his roster the best in the transfer portal era is Dan Lanning. I mean, I love the way he recruits and then he brings in the type of players for his system. So it's going to come down to Dante Moore. Is he the guy at quarterback? They're raving about him. He was inconsistent at UCLA, but I'm going to lean over the 10 and a half.
All right, Zach, you agree?
Yeah, this one was the toughest one for me out of all the Big Ten teams we're going to discuss, but I'm going to go over on Oregon. As you touched on, Mackenzie, they're not going to face Ohio State this year, so they have an easier schedule for the Big Ten conference play. And I just don't want to go against Dan Lanning. We've seen it each of the past 2 years where they've had 11 wins or more in the regular season. They actually have the third best home winning streak in all of college football. They've won 15 games in a row at Eugene, have not lost there since November 2022. So Dante Moore, we'll see what he'll be able to do, but he did get a year to learn on the sideline. I think that helps him for this season. And ultimately, I just cannot go against Dan Lanning in that Oregon Ducks track record.
Emory, make this interesting for me, please.
I will. I like to go under here for a lot of the reasons that both guys name. And I'm going to use one of Tom's statements is the fact that I think 10 is the exact number for Oregon. I do feel like how Zach pointed out, that Dante Moore is sitting behind, Dylan Gabriel for the full season last year, getting to soak in the offense, watching a guy that has played a lot of football execute the quarterback position at a very high level. That helps him out more so stepping into this unit that has a very good offensive line, good backs. Mekhi Hughes coming in from Tulane should help bolster the run game as well. And so when you think about what they have defensively, along with a quarterback, they got a year to learn the system and also already has playing experience. I think 10 is a good year for them, but I can't go over that 10 and a half because they have some trap games on that schedule.
I know these are tough. Like in the SportsLine model, we have them literally all three at 9.6 to 9.8 wins. Like I think there's a version of the story where we see a lot of 10-win teams between this and the SEC. All right, let's go down to Michigan though. Now they don't have the necessarily 10 and a half team win total, but they are rocking at 8.5, heavily juiced to the over minus 175. Now this is a team, they only play Ohio State, and there's a lot of upside on this team. So curious, Zach, if you have any optimism on the over here.
I'm going to go under there, even though the spread is suggesting we take the over here. But I look at Michigan, anytime you lose a top-tier coach like they did 2 years ago with Jim Harbaugh, it's usually that second season that you start to see that impact. We know the defense is going to be there under Coach Moore, but that's my worry. It sets you up for a lot of close victories. You examine last year, 5 of their 7 wins were by a touchdown or less, 3 of those wins by just a field goal. So I think Michigan is going to be similar to last year, 7 to 8 wins, but I'll go under the 8.5.
All right, Tom, are you believing in the $8 million teenager here or no?
Well, I am, but Mackenzie, you made a good point about these win totals. My projections have Michigan at 8.5 wins, so this is a pretty good win total. I went under based purely on the juice. You have to lay more juice to go over. You get plus money on the under, so that's why I went there. For me, Michigan is a year away. I think next year they're going to be really, really good with Bryce Underwood. They're going to be back to being a national title contender. So I see him as a solid 8 to 9 win team this year, but with the odds and the juice, I'll lean under.
Fair. Emory, are we making this unanimous?
Yes, we are. I'll go under as well. I think Bryce Underwood is more like Vince Young as opposed to like Deshaun Watson. And I say that in terms of how they started their careers. Vince Young, it took a little while before he became the guy at Texas in terms of like the playmaker and consistency. Watson hit the ground running right away. I'm surprised he didn't stay in that game against Georgia. Otherwise, they beat Georgia. He should have been a starter from his first pass on. But because of that, I do like him later in the season to be better. But right now, to start, we have to rack up some wins to go over this total. I'm going to go under.
That's fair. Let me go back to Emory. I want to talk about Indiana briefly. Obviously such a great run last year, a team I made enemies with, but you know what? Somebody ended up being right. But I want to know how you feel about this 8.5 win total. Do you anticipate any regression like the odds makers are implying here with that -130?
Yes, because at the end of the day, everyone else in the Big Ten got better. There are some teams that you have to really worry about this year in the Big Ten. That's Illinois, that's Iowa, that's Wisconsin quietly. So there are some teams that if you're Indiana, now you go from being the hunter to the hunted. And how do you handle expectations? And yes, Mendoza's coming in as a new quarterback, and he does provide a little bit more athleticism than Curtis Rourke. But at the end of the day, this Big Ten is a different Big Ten than we saw in 2024.
Fair enough. Tom, are you agreeing here? How do you feel about Cignetti's year?
Yeah, I don't think Indiana's going to be a one-year wonder. I think Cignetti is an excellent coach who knows how to use the transfer portal. But I have to agree with Emory about the Big Ten. I think it's stronger top to bottom this year than it was last year. So that's going to be more close games and all the blowouts. They had a great schedule last year. So I think this is a solid 8-win team. I'm going to go under.
Zack, you feeling the solid under as well?
Yeah, we're making it a sweep here. This Hoosiers team got a dose of reality last year in the college football playoffs against the Irish. Coach Cignetti, he had so many transfers that he had success with last year, including the ones he brought over from his former school in James Madison. So he loses some of that talent. And the Big Ten schedule for them is just so much more difficult than last season. You're not dodging Penn State and Oregon as you did a season ago. And the rest of the Big Ten is going to be ready for them this year after the success they had last year. So I'll lean under the 8.5 wins.
All right, fair enough. Maybe a bit of a hangover for the Indiana Hoosiers. Now, next, gentlemen, we move to the bottom of the conference because we can still make money on win totals that are like 3.5, 4.5. And quite frankly, that's how I kind of like to play it sometimes. So stick around. There is still money to be made in the Big Ten. This is The Early Edge on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to The Early Edge on CBS Sports Network, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We have hit the top of the board of the Big Ten. We are working our way all the way down to the bottom, where you can still make money on some win totals. And I have just the crew to continue the Big Ten conversation, the Big Ten Hour with me. Tom, Emory, Zack, they join us again. Let's start with the Purdue Boilermakers, gentlemen. They bring in just about 8 gajillion transfers. That is the most in recent history here outside of Sanders and Colorado. 3.5 is the win total, close to +200 for the over. Emory, I start with you. Can the Boilermakers crack 4 wins?
It's going to be tough because I struggle to find 4 wins on that schedule with how better the Big Ten is as collective. But I do like Devin Mockabee, the outstanding tailback, although he does wear that ugly 45. But he's a fantastic tailback, so it gives them a chance to run the football. But everywhere else, with all of the moving pieces that you talked about, all of those transfers, it does make it difficult to say, okay, this team has this identity coming into this season. I know Coach Odom does a great job in preaching defense and run game. So we'll see them play tight games, but I don't know yet if they have the guys to get over that hump against some of these other big teams in the Big Ten. So I like them to go under. I think 3 is the number for Purdue, and I hope they make me look foolish on this by getting that 4th win, but that schedule is pretty doggone tough.
Yeah, it feels like every Big Ten schedule is going to be tough here. Zack, any more optimism on Purdue here?
Yeah, this is strictly a value play for me, going over Purdue's win total at plus 190 odds. Barry Odom, their new head coach, he showed at his last stop at UNLV how quickly he can transform a team. The Rebels blew past their win total last year. He brought in 8 transfers alone from UNLV, and you have to take care of Ball State, Northern Illinois, and Northwestern, and from there you just need one upset out of those 8 other games. So it's going to be tough. I do agree with Emory. This could land on 3, but I'll go over the 3.5 just to lean for me.
Fair enough. Tom, is this plus 190 intriguing you here at all?
Yeah, well, Zach stole my thunder. He kind of said everything I was going to say, but I agree with the guys. This is 3 wins are there, right? Where they could start the season 2-0, and then I have them rated slightly higher than Northwestern, who I think is the worst team in the Big Ten. Where does that 4th win come from? I'm not sure. But when you look at the odds to bet the under and the over, I took a shot at the over just in case there's a 4th win there somewhere. I do think they'll be improved. 3 to 4 wins, though. That's about it.
All right, let's go back to that team you think is the worst team in the Big Ten with Northwestern. They have the same 3.5 win total here, minus 154 though to the over. I mean, they start the season 2-1 before losing 7 of their last 9 games. They bring in Preston Stone from SMU. Tom, what makes you so down on the Northwestern team?
Well, you look at their non-conference, and there's 2 wins probably there, right? Northern Illinois or Western Illinois and UL Monroe. Where do the 2 Big Ten wins come from? I mean, maybe Purdue, right? And then where? To me, this is a program on the decline. I know their coach had a good first season, but I don't think he's the guy. Preston Stone, I don't know if that's a good fit for what Northwestern wants to do. I think they're in for a rough year. I see 2 or 3 wins max for Northwestern.
Zach, are you seeing a rough road ahead for Northwestern too?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going under the 3.5 wins plus 126. Just mentioned that I like Purdue's over, which I think that game is going to be the difference in either team getting that 4th win. And last year, Northwestern actually got their 4th win by beating Purdue in overtime. So I look at Preston Stone. He just seemed lost last year for SMU. That first game against Nevada was benched the rest of the year for Jennings. And you look at his experience, it's not from the ACC. It's from the SMU's old conference in the American Conference. So this is a huge step up in class for him in the Big Ten. Facing those Big Ten defenses, I'm going to go under the 3.5 wins for Northwestern.
Yeah, really good point to make. Not the same SMU team that we've seen rocking around last season by any means here. All right, let's move to Maryland here. Bit step up. We got 4.5 is the win total here for the Maryland Terps. This team has lost just about every important player. I mean, top receiving yards, passing yard, rushing yard. Every important stat seems to be out of that locker room. Emory, how are you feeling? Do you like this plus money, slight plus money for the over?
Yes, absolutely. I've been saying Maryland's going to be better than people think. They lose a lot of guys during the transfer portal, but they also retain and bring in a couple of guys as well. Malik Washington, the true freshman quarterback, is going to light up the Big Ten. He is a phenomenal talent. I remember calling one of his high school games when he was a sophomore, and he looked like Vince Young out there on the field with a thrilling comeback victory against Don Bosco up here in Jersey. So watching and calling that game and then seeing him progress to become one of the top quarterbacks in the country was there in the spring. Already has a couple of transfer receivers that he's been working with and building that rapport. And Coach Loxley does a great job of making the games entertaining. They'll be able to score. It's about can they get those stops defensively. That's been an issue whether they had guys returning or guys not returning or inexperienced roster. I like them to go over. Offense is going to be key for them. Getting 5 wins, getting 6 wins is definitely in play for Maryland based off the quarterback alone.
All right. Tom, do you feel as high on this quarterback as Emory does here?
Well, Emery's right. I think the offense is going to be fine. I think the problem for me with Maryland is they wear down during the Big Ten season. They don't have those guys up front. There's 2 teams in these major conferences I think it's a real big swing year for. It's Maryland and Kentucky in the SEC. They're both at 4.5. I think if they have bad seasons, there could be coaching changes there. They're probably going to start out 3-0. I just worry about this defense once we get into Big Ten play. I think the Big Ten schedule is tough for them. So again, I can see around 5 wins, but I'm going to lean slightly to the under 4.5.
All right, Zach, how are we feeling about the Terps here?
Yeah, I'm going to go over the 4.5 with Emory plus 105 odds. What Maryland has done, even through these down seasons, is do very well in non-conference play. They've been 3-0 each of the last 4 years. And you look at their first game against Florida Atlantic, they are 2 touchdown favorites. They're going to take care of them. Then they're going to face Towson in Northern Illinois. So I see them being 3-0 once again. And Coach Loxley, they have a lot of returning talent, so he can get growth from those players. And then it's just 2 wins in Big Ten conference play to hit that magic number 5, which they've had at least 2 wins in Big Ten play 4 out of the last 5 years.
All right. Listen, I'm always in on the lower win totals here. I played a lot of Vanderbilt back in my day, some non-conference win totals for some of these lower level teams. Let's go to Wisconsin. Again, a little bit step up here. Win total is 5.5 for the Badgers, plus 140 to the over. Now, this is a team that went 5-7 last year and missed a bowl game, which isn't something they've done since I did the research since I was born. So it's really hard to imagine they're going to do that again. Emory, do you believe in this team to crack 6 wins this year?
I do, because the nuance that is left out with that record is the fact that they had nothing at quarterback because they had that gruesome injury with Tyler Van Dyke against Bama. And then next thing you know, the quarterback position was all in flux. This year, they get Billy Edwards, who was at Maryland, who has some good ability as a passer and also is a very underrated athlete with his legs. So I think getting Billy Edwards, along with this offensive line, along with what they have in the backfield, they got good depth in the backfield. Defensively, it's just a mindset that they play with. It doesn't matter who's the coach, who's the coordinator. They always will play solid, fundamentally sound defense. So I think Wisconsin can definitely go over this number. Very underrated team. I think people are sleeping on how good Billy Edwards is.
All right, all right. Zach, are you in on this plus 140 play here?
This one, I don't like to lay the juice, but this one I'm going to. I'm going to go under the 5.5 wins, minus 165. Mediocrity is what we've seen under Coach Fickell at Wisconsin. 6 wins, 7 wins, and 5 wins last year. And quarterback play just has not been there for this Wisconsin team. You go back to last season, started the year 5-2, disastrous ending to the year, losing 5 straight games, outscored 154-68. And then the schedule this year, again, you've got to face Alabama again, which is that 3rd game right before Big Ten conference play. You get blown out there, that could just lead to a tailspin once again. So I'm going under the 5.5 wins for Wisconsin.
All right, Tom, break the tie here. Tell me what you feel.
Yeah, I'm going to go over. I think the offense is going to be better without Phil Longo, who somehow got a head coaching job at Sam Houston. I just think they're going to get back to Wisconsin football. That air Wisconsin was just never going to work. It's not who they are. So I do think they're going to be slightly better than last season. And you're looking at 4 games, right? They have home games against Iowa and Washington and road games against Indiana and Minnesota. Those 4 games are going to decide this win total. But I think the defense is going to be a little better. I like the offense without Longo there. So give me the over on Wisconsin.
Okay, we are in on the Badgers over here with Emory and Tom. Gentlemen, we are just cracking the surface. We got to talk more. Who gets to the Big Ten championship? Who wins the Big Ten championship? Coach of the year. All of these things still need to be discussed. Coming up next on The Early Edge on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to The Early Edge on CBS Sports Network, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Tom and Emory are back because we still have a ton to unpack in the Big Ten. Let's talk long picture. Let's talk December. We're in Indiana, Indianapolis. Vibes are high. Tom, who are the 2 teams, I'm assuming one of these big 3, that actually make it to the Big Ten game?
Yeah, well, if you're a Penn State fan, you're going to love this segment because I know Emory and I both high on the Nittany Lions this season. I'm going to go Penn State and Oregon. I think Penn State not being favored to win the Big Ten is kind of a joke. I think they're the best team by far entering the season. I know there's all the James Franklin talk and all this stuff, but regular season, they're the best team. And Oregon's schedule just sets up nicely for them. It'll be either them or Ohio State. I don't think you'll see another team sneak in there. I do like Illinois as a sleeper, but I don't think they get there. So Oregon, Penn State for me.
Yeah, that's the tough part. I think all of these teams make it. I think odds makers are implying you just need to win 10 games here, probably between these 3 teams. Emory, do you think Ohio State or Oregon is going to be that team playing Penn State?
Listen, guys, we all work for the Columbia Broadcast System, and we love rematches, we love drama, we love to drum up the interest in the Big Ten title game, right? So Penn State beats Ohio State in the regular season, and then come Big Ten title game, we're gonna have Ohio State versus State University of Pennsylvania once again. So we're going to have a rematch in the Big Ten title game for the whole enchilada, even though both these teams are going to end up in the playoffs. But we at CBS love to drum up the controversy, the stories, the intrigue, and we're going to get a rematch in the Big Ten title game.
That is fair. It would be phenomenal television to get the revenge game here. But here's the problem, boys. Can Penn State actually win the big game? That is the question of the century. Tom, is it their year? Is it their year to win the Big Ten?
Well, it better be their year. This is their best team. Listen, you can say whatever you want about James Franklin, and a lot of that criticism is deserved. But this is coming down to Drew Aller. All right, in 6 games against Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Ole Miss, and Notre Dame, 7 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. In his other 42 starts, 42 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He's got to play better in the big games. If he does that and avoids mistakes, and again, the receiving core, it's improved at Penn State. I think he's going to have a big year. I don't know how many games Penn State's going to lose this year. Defense is loaded, running game's loaded, offensive line's loaded. Best overall team in the country, I think.
Well, yeah, we're not worried about the regular season here, Tom. We're not even worried about them getting to the Big Ten championship. But Emory, do you think Drew Aller can get it done when it comes to the Big Ten championship?
I believe so. Not only did they get to the postseason last year, they did a great job in winning a game. So now they have that taste of what it takes to win in the postseason. They suffered a tough loss in the postseason. So they also have that history to draw from as well. And like Tom said, this is their most talented team. They're balanced on both sides of the ball. Balance on offense is most important and is probably the reason why they couldn't knock the door down in the postseason last year against Notre Dame. So I think that's not going to be the case this year. James Franklin does a great job in replenishing and recruiting. You think about what he did at Vanderbilt, making those guys consistently challenging for a bowl bid and got those guys into multiple bowl bids. So bowl games. So I like them to really do the thing this year. Drew Aller can lead the way for sure.
I know. I was trying to track that. I think he had like 6 touchdowns to 4 interceptions in some of these late important games, or he just had literally 0 touchdowns in some of these more important games as well. So a lot on the back of Drew Aller this year. Let's talk about off the field a little bit. The coaches here. We have the Big Ten. Who's going to win the Coach of the Year? Essentially, you see Kirk Cignetti win it last year. Is there anyone you have your eye on, Emory, this year that might be taking that home?
Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, I feel like will have one of his better years with the Hawkeyes because they have great quarterback play now with Mark Gronowski coming in as a national champion from South Dakota State. So just that alone elevates this football team and it'll make everything else fall into place. I know people said their defense wasn't the Iowa defense as it has been last season, but that's okay. They're going to have an offense that can, chew up the clock, be balanced, be efficient, and now that gives the defense the time to get rested, get adjusted, and be better out there on the field. I like Kirk Ferentz to take home the Coach of the Year trophy.
Interesting. I like the down the board sleeper teams here. Tom, I have a feeling you're in a very similar situation here.
Yeah, I do agree with Emory about Gronowski as the quarterback for Iowa. This might not be your same Iowa offense. And Iowa's a team we kind of haven't talked about much this offseason. They're kind of sneaking under the radar. But I went with Brett Bielema at Illinois. A couple months ago, Illinois was my sleeper team. They were plus 5,990 to make the college football playoff. I was feeling good. Then the AP poll comes out when they're sitting at 12. So that was a little bit surprising. They're getting a lot of love. But I do like the schedule. I like the experience of that team. I think they can sneak around that playoff discussion. Bielema's got his type of team, offensive front, defensive line. He's going to grind it out with an experienced quarterback. I'll go with him to win Coach of the Year.
Tom, this is like the one decision we really differ on. Like I know. I'm so out. I think this is like a fraudulent 10-win team last year. Nonetheless, let's go to our favorite Big Ten win total. We've talked about the top of the board. We've talked about the bottom of the board. Emory, I'm seeing some correlated plays here with your Coach of the Year.
It's all connected. It's coming together like magnets. So when you think about Iowa going over 7.5, yes, that's going to happen. Iowa still plays the brand of football that no one else wants to play. Everyone wants to go out there 5 wide and run routes and break up passes, do cool dances for TikTok, but nobody wants to put their hands in the dirt and get physical. Iowa will love to have a physical discussion with everybody each and every week. So when you add that component to them now entering the 21st century with a quarterback that can play, this is a team that no one will want to face. I like Iowa to go over 7.5 wins.
I hope Iowa's locker room gets a hold of this and clips it for their hype up videos because that is fabulous. I agree. I think the trenches of this team will always give them 6 to 7 wins. It's just a matter of what the quarterback play is going to get them from there. Aligned with you here, Emory. Tom, take us to California, a team we haven't talked too much about here yet.
Yeah, I like UCLA over 5.5 wins. I don't think Deshaun Foster got enough credit for last season. Like, I know they didn't win 10 games, but he took over an awful situation, and the team was a lot better than I thought they were going to be. They were competitive in a lot of games. They fought, and now this year he's got a deeper, more talented roster. Obviously, Nico coming in from Tennessee to be the quarterback is a major upgrade for them. The schedule's manageable, no Oregon, Michigan, and Illinois. And while I like Utah to win the Big 12, sometimes Kyle Whittingham's teams start the year off slowly. They get them in that first game. They're almost a touchdown underdog. I wouldn't be surprised if they win that one outright. Watch out for UCLA as being a sneaky good team in the betting market again this year.
Okay, we like to find the value down the board as always, and we still have more to unpack. We're going to get a little bit more into the P's and Q's. Let's break down the T a little bit. We got some more questions to answer about the Big Ten in general coming up next, and we're bringing in Chip Patterson, a little personality, to join the show as well. Welcome back to the Early Edge on CBS Sports Network. We are joined by Tom Emory, and we bring, entering the chat, Chip Patterson to talk a little bit Big Ten, just some larger questions we have. So we're just going to throw you right in, Chip. Let's start with the Buckeyes here. We've already talked about them. We addressed their win total earlier in this show. Just curious your thoughts, though. Are we going to see a hangover from this team, or is this like a recharge, reload type of situation?
Great question, Kenz. I think no, it is entirely a new team that we have. So much of what they were able to accomplish, not just in the regular season, but in the college football playoff, came because they had that senior leadership. They had all those players like Jack Sawyer, Tyleik Williams, guys who could have played in the NFL but decided to come back for one more year in Columbus. The leadership of Will Howard. I just think that this is a brand new group, and Ryan Day understands there's a lot of unknown. Now, he's got the advantages of having maybe the best pound-for-pound player on offense in the country in Jeremiah Smith and maybe the best pound-for-pound player in Caleb Downs. But I tell you what, everything we're hearing from fall camp is that there is a lot of prove it. There is a lot of competition. And I think that hunger is going to help them avoid the hangover.
Yeah, fair statement. You can't have the hangover if you weren't there for the first one here. So let's talk about a new quarterback here with Julian saying, Emory, obviously any new quarterback is going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. Do you think that this will be part of the hangover? Or do you think he's got it all figured out?
I don't want to say he has it all figured out, but I will say because you had all of that leadership from last year and now that they're gone, they were able to teach the youth. And now the youth can carry forth with the new brand of leadership, their version of leadership. And they still have two cornerstones. And Chip talked about them in, Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. That's all you need on both sides of the ball. They will help set the table and set the tone for everyone. And because they're so talented, even though they're replacing some starters, that's going to make Saban's job a lot easier than it would be if we were talking about a team like Northern Illinois that lost a lot of players from a program that went to the postseason, right? So Ohio State's in a good situation because of who they are. There won't be a hangover because Ryan Day was about to lose his job every week of the season, even up until kickoff of the national championship game. Fans wanted him out of there. But so he understands the gravity of the situation, and so he'll handle these expectations and help this team avoid that slow start and stumble out the gate.
Yeah, I mean, fair. Obviously, a team and a brand like this will always come out strong here. But Tom, do you believe that they can be as good as they were last year, national championship contender good?
Well, I think they might take a minor step back only because of everything the guys were saying. Let's not forget, Ryan Day figured out a way to lose 2 games with the best team in the country last year. So, I could see him ending up with the same record. I don't know if their ceiling is quite as high. This is a new age of college football. We don't have a ton of data. The one thing we've seen the last couple of years, the four teams playing in the national championship game, experienced quarterback. Final four last year, experienced quarterback. Ohio State doesn't have an experienced quarterback this year. So we'll have to see how that shapes out. Now, they do have the most dominant football player on the planet in Jeremiah Smith. Maybe you don't need an experienced quarterback, but I think just a slight step back for the Buckeyes in a bit of a transition season.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to one of the other big three in the Big Ten here with Penn State. I've gotten the vibes of how you guys all feel about this team. I understand that we are an optimistic pro Nittany Lions squad going on in these four boxes here. Let's talk about James Franklin here because obviously it feels like he's always under pressure. But Chip, in this specific year, like, is the seat so hot if he doesn't literally win a national championship?
It's not a hot seat in that Penn State would move on him. But there is living in Happy Valley as the pressure of being the Penn State head coach. And then there's living in Happy Valley with the pressure of having not achieved what the entire fan base thinks you can achieve. They do not have a national championship since 1986. They have not finished in the top two of the final poll since 1994. And yet we are talking about Penn State like a top two, top three type team, a team that should be able to go out and get over the hump. Now, James Franklin has been very testy with those Penn State fans, even as recently as just last season. So will there be any hot seat pressure? No, but will the chatter around the Penn State fan base pick up if he can't get it done this year? Absolutely. And it starts against Ohio State in the regular season because that is the game. That is the team, that is the spot that so many Penn State fans are frustrated with, that Penn State wins double-digit games almost every single year, but they can't get over on the Buckeyes. If Penn State loses to Ohio State in the regular season, the frustration will begin to build.
Emory, it feels like, as Chip is mentioning, there is always frustration around James Franklin, so it's hard to decide what is real frustration and what is actual hot seat frustration, but well, I mean, A, do you think this is absolutely Penn State's year? And how do you think James Franklin is affected by this if it's not?
Listen, yes, I do think it's Penn State's year, right? But as you guys know, I am first team all instigator. If we have Penn State's schedule, pull it up. I'm gonna tell you when people are gonna get antsy when they focus on this Penn State football team. And the thing is, when Penn State should be able to get through their schedule pretty unscathed, but when you look at their schedule and you see who they have in week 2, they play FIU. I'm a big Willie Simmons guy. Willie Simmons was the head football coach at Florida A&M, used to put together some dominant teams at FAMU. Now he's the head coach at FIU, and that team is going to be a lot better than people think. If Penn State doesn't win that game 44-3, fans in Happy Valley will be like, man, see, this is why we didn't blow them out by 45 points, right? So the unrealistic expectation that Chip talked about, the last time you won a national championship was 86, and the last time you kind of won a national championship, I arguably would say 94. Shout out to Kajana Carter running to the camera against the Oregon Ducks. But at the end of the day, if they have to run through everybody on their schedule for people to feel like this was worth it, because they know James Franklin, and he knows that he's a little bit on a tenuous situation with the fans and the boosters, but this team definitely has what it takes to get them to where they want to be.
Yeah, it feels like every week, I mean, the pressure will be on here. Tom, do you feel like the week-to-week pressure is going to be warranted for James Franklin? Like, do you think he has to be blowing out these teams and keeping everybody happy this way?
It's always tough for me because it's hard for me to criticize a guy who won 9 games in back-to-back season with Vanderbilt and is 125-57 overall. But listen, the guy can recruit. Yeah, it's interesting because, I heard former Alabama coach Bill Curry say once that his teams got tight in big games, and they got tight because of him. He made them tight. That's kind of how I feel with Penn State. Like when they get in these big games, they get a little bit conservative. They're a little tight. I think that's all they have to get over. They have everything else. It's just getting over that big game. And, everyone wanted Ryan Day fired until they didn't. And James Franklin is one great season away from going from being fired to getting a statue built of him. And I think this is his year. If it's not, we'll see what happens.
That is a very, very, very good point. James Franklin could be statue or he could be hibernating somewhere in Alaska after the season. We do not know, but if you want to talk to us about it and come hang out, you can join the SportsLine Discord. That is where you can get access to a lot of our picks, to us directly, ask us questions, join the community, live chats. You can receive winning picks, enter contests, all of our insider information, and more. So join the SportsLine Discord, members only, and we will be back to talk more Big Ten after this. Welcome back to the Early Edge on CBS Sports Network. We're still talking Big Ten. You did not miss anything. We are still in the Big Ten, still more to unpack here. And I want to talk Heisman, gentlemen, because really interesting how many people are so high on this Penn State team, how everyone thinks this is their year, and James Franklin. You look at Drew Aller Heisman odds. He's 18-1. He's like 6 to 7th shortest. A lot of guys ahead of him. He's tied with Carson Beck there. So, Emory, I'm curious, do you think this is an award that is possible for him to win, or do you think there's too much talent in the back room or other things that would take away from that?
This is his award to win, and I tie it to quarterback that's on the best roster type of championship, type of Heisman winner. Think Jason White at Oklahoma, even though Peterson should have got it. So I do feel like Aller, because he's the quarterback, he won't put up gaudy numbers, like crazy numbers, but he'll do enough. And if they're number one, then they're going to kind of lean toward his way and give him that Heisman Trophy. So that's why I think he has a good chance to win it.
All right, Chip, are you seeing any good value in the 18-1 market here?
Honestly, I don't think it's a great bet. Can Drew Aller win it? Yes. And the path is exactly what Emory laid out with the quarterback face of the number one team. If he plays well against Oregon, checks that box, there'll be other opportunities for him to do a lot of stat padding, which he does against worse teams. But I think that this could be a season where Drew Aller becomes like J.J. McCarthy on 2023 Michigan. Here's what I mean. Run the ball on first down, run the ball on second down, then you have third and J.J., and he goes and figures it out. Because when you've got Nick Singleton, when you've got Katron Allen, when you've got that offensive line, I just kind of see that they're going to be able to roll over a lot of teams without asking Drew Aller to make the highlight plays that you need to win the Heisman Trophy. And look, Drew will tell you himself, I'd rather have a national championship than the Heisman Trophy. And, maybe that helps me be a first-round NFL draft pick, because I think Penn State won't need Drew Aller to be the most outstanding player because that team is so loaded right now.
I know, that's where I go so back and forth with this, because the team rocks so much. Like, it's not going to be Drew Aller saving the day every day. But then again, Penn State loves to stat pad. We know they're going to kill teams by double digits that they don't probably need to. So that's the tough situation. Tom, which way are you leaning on this? Do you think he has a chance of actually winning?
I think he has a chance. Both guys made great points. And just to talk about what Chip said about J.J. McCarthy, in late October, he was getting some Heisman buzz. Next game, Michigan wins by 50. He has like 100 yards passing. They had 2 defensive touchdowns. They ran for 250 yards. That's my worry with Aller, is like what Chip said. The way Penn State plays, are there a couple games where he's not the star and somebody else kind of gets the limelight? And I'll say this right now, Arch Manning beats Ohio State and Georgia, it's over.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, so many real contenders in this race this year. I will say, a lot of the times it is the longer odd guys in August that end up winning this award. So we will have to see. It has been a pleasure, gentlemen. Emory, Chip, and Tom, thank you so much for unpacking the Big Ten with me. Let's do this again sometime. Maybe we'll go SEC, ACC if we're feeling crazy. But if you want to see anything you have missed from us, tune into the Early Edge every day, wherever you get your podcasts, or watch live with us on sportslineyoutube.com.